Chapter 6: The Dusty Outpost and a Whisper of Treachery. The coordinates led the Galactic Wanderer to a forgotten asteroid belt, a derelict graveyard of failed mining operations. This sector, known as the Scrap Heap, was infamous for its unpredictable asteroid drifts and the occasional rogue scavenger. It was precisely the kind of place where a forgotten Veritas Protocol fragment might lie hidden, far from the prying eyes of the Galactic Council. "Sensors are showing an old mining outpost ahead, Captain," Alara reported, her voice echoing in the quiet cockpit. "It's barely registered on galactic charts. Looks like a ghost town." "Perfect," Rex grunted, navigating the Galactic Wanderer through a labyrinth of scarred, jagged asteroids. The less attention, the better. He kept one eye on the tactical display, ever vigilant for any sign of the Shadow Keepers. Their last encounter in the Veil Nebula had left him with a bitter taste. The idea of humans turning against their own kind, using corrupted alien tech, was a betrayal that sat deep in his gut. They approached the outpost cautiously. It was a cluster of rusted, modular habitats clinging to the side of a large asteroid, connected by tangled tubes and silent landing pads. Dust, accumulated over decades, coated every surface. It looked like time had simply forgotten this place. Rex guided the Galactic Wanderer to one of the empty landing pads. The automated landing sequence engaged, and with a soft hiss of thrusters, they settled down. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the hum of the ship's life support. "No external power signatures detected," Alara noted, her fingers flying across her console. "No signs of recent activity. It really is abandoned." "Or a trap," Rex countered, already reaching for his old, trusty plasma pistol. It wasn't fancy, but it was reliable, unlike some of the high-tech garbage the Federation churned out. "Stay close, Alara, and keep your comms open. If anything feels off, you call it." They donned their pressurized suits and stepped out of the airlock, the cold vacuum of space biting at their boots. The dust swirled around them as they moved, disturbed by their passage. The outpost smelled of stale air, rust, and something else, a faint metallic scent that Rex couldn't quite place. They moved through the desolate corridors of the outpost. The habitat modules were dark, their windows either shattered or covered in layers of grime. Inside, rusted machinery stood idle, tools lay scattered, and personal belongings, a faded photograph, a child's toy, a cracked data slate, spoke of lives abruptly interrupted. "Looks like they left in a hurry," Alara observed, peering into what looked like an old living quarters. "No signs of struggle, but everything is just abandoned. It's eerie." They continued their search, guided by the Libertonian map's faint signal, which indicated the Veritas fragment was located deep within the outpost's main data processing facility. The journey through the decaying modules was slow, punctuated by the creak of protesting metal and the hiss of their own breath in their helmets. They finally reached the data processing facility. It was a larger module, sealed by a heavy, reinforced door. The map's signal pulsed stronger here, indicating they were close. Rex inspected the door. It was old but solid. "Any way to get this open without making too much noise?" he asked Alara. Alara scanned the door's ancient locking mechanism. "It's an old hydraulic lock. I might be able to bypass it. Give me a moment." She connected her data pad to a dusty access port, her fingers dancing across the interface. After a few tense minutes, a low hiss emanated from the door, and it slowly began to slide open, revealing a dark, cavernous room beyond. The air within was even staler, a heavy, dead silence hanging in the void. As they stepped inside, their suit lights illuminated rows of defunct servers, their screens black, their wires a tangled mess. The hum of powerful, ancient machinery was absent, but in the center of the room, on a dusty console, a single device glowed faintly. It was small, crystalline, and radiating the familiar Libertonian energy signature. "There it is," Alara whispered, moving towards it, another fragment of the Veritas Protocol. As she reached for it, Rex felt a sudden, inexplicable chill. His instincts, honed by years of surviving in the harsh galactic frontier, screamed danger. "Wait, Alara," but it was too late. As her fingers brushed the glowing fragment, a sharp, piercing alarm blared through the silent outpost, echoing off the metallic walls. The door behind them slammed shut with a deafening clang. "It was a trap," Alara gasped, pulling her hand back. "I know," Rex snarled, already raising his plasma pistol. "Get behind me." From the shadows between the server racks, figures emerged. They were humanoid, clad in dark, form-fitting armor, their faces obscured by opaque visors. They moved with a chilling precision, their weapons sleek and alien, raised and aimed. These were the Shadow Keepers. "We knew you would come, Captain Vance," a cold, synthesized voice emanated from the lead figure. "The Veritas Protocol cannot be reassembled. The truth must remain buried." Rex fired his plasma pistol, sending a scorching bolt of energy towards the lead keeper. The keeper's energy shield flickered, absorbing the hit, but he didn't falter. Their technology was far more advanced than Rex's old reliable gear. "Alara, can you hack their comms?" "Anything," Rex yelled, ducking behind a server rack as a volley of energy bolts impacted his cover, sparking violently. "They're heavily encrypted," Alara replied, frantically working on her datapad, "and they're jamming our own long-range comms. Were cut off." The Shadow Keepers moved with terrifying efficiency, trying to flank them. They were skilled, coordinated, and utterly ruthless. Rex fired another shot, hitting a keeper in the shoulder. The figure stumbled, but quickly recovered, its shield deflecting the plasma. "Their shields are too strong for conventional weaponry, Captain," Alara warned. "We need a different approach." Rex looked around the room, his eyes scanning for an advantage. The old mining equipment, the defunct servers, the dusty conduits, there had to be something. His gaze fell upon a large, corroded power conduit running along the ceiling. "Alara, can you overload that conduit?" Rex shouted, pointing to the pipe. "If I can create a distraction, can you get us out of here?" "I can try," Alara yelled back, already working on her datapad, trying to find a way to access the outpost's dormant power grid, "but it'll take time." Rex knew he had to buy her that time. He burst from behind the server rack, firing wildly, drawing the Shadow Keeper's attention. Energy bolts whizzed past him, sizzling against the metal. He dodged, weaved, and returned fire, using every ounce of his trucker cunning to avoid their precise attacks. He knew he couldn't win a direct fight. His goal was survival, to give Alara the chance to do her work. He saw an opening, a brief lapse in their formation, and he sprinted towards another section of servers, diving behind cover, just as a barrage of bolts ripped through the air where he had been. "I'm in," Alara's voice crackled in his comm. "Initiating overload sequence, it's going to be rough." "Now," Rex yelled. A low hum filled the room, rapidly escalating into a deafening roar. The old power conduit overhead began to glow, then shimmer, then crackle with raw energy. The Shadow Keepers, realizing the danger, paused their assault, looking up. "It's going to blow," one of the keepers shouted, their synthesized voice betraying a hint of alarm. With a blinding flash and a thunderous explosion, the conduit ruptured, sending a wave of raw energy and debris through the data processing facility. The power surge overloaded the defunct servers, causing them to explode in a chain reaction of sparks and twisted metal. The room plunged into chaos, filled with smoke, falling debris, and the screeching alarms of the outpost going haywire. Rex, shielded by a sturdy server rack, felt the shockwave reverberate through his suit. He saw glimpses of the Shadow Keepers, their shields flickering violently, some thrown backward by the force of the blast. This was their chance. "Alara, now!" Rex yelled, pushing through the smoke. "I found an emergency exit," Alara shouted back, her voice barely audible over the din. "Through the maintenance tunnels, follow me." She led the way, a small flashlight beam cutting through the thick smoke and dust. They scrambled through a narrow, dark opening in the wall, half crawling through cramped, dusty maintenance tunnels. Behind them, they could hear the shouts of the Shadow Keepers, regrouping and preparing to pursue. The tunnels were a maze of pipes and wires, barely wide enough for them to squeeze through. Rex, despite his larger frame, pushed forward, his plasma pistol clutched tightly in his hand. He knew their pursuers would be faster, but they wouldn't know the layout of these ancient tunnels as well as Alara could decipher them from the outpost schematic. "Almost there," Alara gasped, her breath ragged. "Another module ahead, it leads to the landing pad." They burst out of the tunnels, into another dark habitat module. The outpost's main power was completely out now, leaving everything in an eerie, pitch-black silence, broken only by their own heavy breathing and the distant sounds of the Shadow Keepers closing in. "Can you see the Galactic Wanderer?" Rex asked, peering through the module's grimy windows. "Yes, it's on the landing pad," Alara confirmed. "But the external power is out. We'll have to manually override the airlock." They ran towards the nearest airlock, leading to the outside. Rex could hear the distinct sound of the Shadow Keepers entering the module behind them. They were gaining. "Cover me," Rex commanded, slamming his hand on the airlock's manual override panel. It was stiff, rusted, and resisted his efforts. Alara, standing guard, fired her own small energy pistol down the corridor, her shots weaker than Rex's plasma bolts, but enough to keep the keepers at bay for a few precious seconds. With a grunt of effort, Rex finally forced the airlock open. The pressure hissed, and the cold vacuum of space welcomed them once more. They scrambled onto the landing pad, Rex providing cover fire, as Alara rushed towards the Galactic Wanderer's main hatch. "They're coming out," Alara yelled, spotting the Shadow Keepers appearing from the outpost's airlock. Rex quickly returned fire, his plasma bolts forcing the Keepers to take cover. "Get inside, I'll cover you." Alara scrambled into the ship. Rex fired a few more suppressing shots, then dove into the hatch just as energy bolts began to sizzle around his feet. The hatch hissed shut behind him. "Lift off," Rex yelled, throwing himself into the pilot's seat. "Now Alara, get us out of here." Alara, already strapped in, slammed her hand on the liftoff sequence. The Galactic Wanderer's engines roared to life, shaking the entire asteroid outpost. The ship shuddered, then slowly, majestically began to ascend. Through the cockpit viewscreen, Rex saw the Shadow Keepers emerge onto the landing pad, their forms silhouetted against the distant stars. They fired their weapons, energy bolts impacting the Galactic Wanderer's shields, which barely held. "They're still hitting us," Alara cried. "They won't for long," Rex snarled. He slammed the main thrusters forward, sending the Galactic Wanderer rocketing away from the asteroid outpost. The Keepers quickly became distant specks, then disappeared entirely as they accelerated into the vastness of space. Rex let out a long, shaky breath. "Well, that was a warm welcome." Alara laughed, a shaky, relieved sound. "We got the fragment, Captain. And we got out alive. That's a victory." Rex looked at the glowing Libertonian fragment, secured in a temporary slot on his console. Another piece of the Veritas protocol, safely retrieved. But the encounter had left him with a bitter taste. The Shadow Keepers, their human faces, their ruthless efficiency. This wasn't just a hunt for truth. It was a battle against a deeply embedded, insidious enemy. "We need to find out more about these Shadow Keepers," Rex said, his voice grim. "If they're human, and they're using Libertonian tech, then this goes deeper than just the Council's propaganda. We need to know who's backing them." Alara nodded, already at her console, sifting through whatever data she could gather from their brief encounter. "I'll try to find some intelligence, Captain. But for now, where to next?" Rex looked at the holographic map, shimmering with countless glowing dots, each representing another fragment of the Veritas protocol. The galaxy felt larger now, and far more dangerous. "Next stop," Rex declared, a new resolve in his eyes, "a place where the Council holds something they truly value, something that might expose their biggest lie." He plotted a course for a heavily guarded Council archive on a bustling core world, a place far from the desolation of the scrap heap. It was a bold, perhaps reckless move, but Rex knew that to fight a war, you had to hit the enemy where it hurt the most.